Thank you for joining me for RFree 102. This builds upon the example we used in RFree 101 and the RFree Quick Start. In RFree 102, we're going to discover a new frequency besides the obvious ones that show up when you do a frequency search. So let's get started. After you've used RFree and saved a couple of antenna searches, you get a list like this. This is my list. Let's go look at that RFree 101 that we had before, and let's make an RFree 102. So I'm going to copy the latitude and longitude, ask for a new location search, paste that in, and give it a nice name. Click on the magnifying glass to reposition the map in Farmington to the same coordinates, and let's check this location. We'll have the exact same results that we had in RFree 101. Now you'll recall in RFree 101 that we, for argument's sake, settled on 103.3 as our frequency of choice. For this example, we're going to imagine that for whatever reason, perhaps all the clearest signal distances were pretty poor, or perhaps there was only one green frequency and no yellow frequencies, or maybe no green and no yellow frequencies. For whatever reason, and this will happen more in congested areas, we needed to try harder. And that requires us to look down here at the red frequencies. There are 8 of them. They are worth a closer look. What does that mean? Well, let me read one of these. This means that 93.5, which has a clearest signal distance of 5.4 kilometers, might become available if we're willing to move our antenna 6.8 kilometers. Now, 6.8 kilometers is a pretty long distance. In fact, the nominal reception distance of an LPFM is 5.6 kilometers. So this might be moving it so far away that the listenership that you really wanted to cover no longer can get your signal. So this might be a bad idea. However, in Farmington, New Mexico, and in many places, if moving it that far away also means you can move the antenna up on a hill or a mountain that's quite high and overlooks your listenership, this might still be a pretty good option. But let's say for argument's sake that it isn't. If we look down this list, we'll see that 103.7 might be available if we're willing to move our antenna only 1.2 kilometers. Same with 104.1. 1.2 kilometers, and we might be able to use 104.1. Let's go check it. Now when you click on these frequencies that are coded red, it takes you directly to the availability map. We saw this in RFree 101. This is the availability map for 104.1 megahertz, and on this map we can also change the antenna location if we wish. A lot of stuff at the top to explain what you're looking at, and here's the deal. Our antenna location is within this red circle. Prohibited areas are shown in red, that's why it's colored red. We can turn the red circle on and off if that helps us get our bearings on the map. More frequently, the waiver required areas are shown in yellow, and the question that comes up for me is this map just naturally yellow, or is this a waiver required area? The easiest way to find out is to turn it off and on. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but it's definitely coming up yellow. I'll zoom out so you can see it more clearly. Anyway, so what this means is if we're willing to move our antenna into this yellow area, then 104.1 should become available as a yellow frequency. Well, that's a good thing. In a congested area, this might mean the difference between no radio station and a possible radio station. So let's do this. I'm going to move it over here, and actually I have a friend who's willing to put it on their house at Zuni and Laguna Avenue, so we're going to check that. This is a fictional example. If you know the person at Zuni and Laguna Avenue, please apologize to them for me. So 104.1 should now show up as a yellow frequency. And there it is, 104.1. It has a prohibited zone of 79 meters, a clear signal distance of 4.4 kilometers, If this was a very difficult situation and this was your only option, that you had just developed a new frequency by moving 1.2 kilometers, I think you might be pretty happy about this. Of course, we're in Farmington. There are many other choices here, including, you might notice, the 103.7 also became available. Usually only the frequency that you're focusing on, in our case 104.1, becomes available, but in this case 103.7 also became available. That's kind of interesting, but not that important to our example, where we just developed a new frequency where perhaps no frequencies had existed, or we added a new frequency that might be better from a competitive or technical standpoint than the ones that were the obvious ones at first. Thanks for listening to me. This has been RFree 102. In RFree 103, we're going to be working with antenna height and coverage. Farmington is also a great place to look at what I mean by that. It's got some mountains and some plateau type areas. So looking at the coverage in Farmington is really going to be a good example. I hope you join me for RFree 103.